As we wrap up Wild Card Weekend in the NFL, we had an amazing weekend of football. There's three games that I want to cover. But before I get into any of that, if any of you check out my show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I just want to say I went 6-0 in my picks this week. I just wanted to throw that out there quick. And a lot of my previous takes from midseason actually happened this weekend, and I was proven right. There's three games I'm going to talk about today. The first one being the Rams defeating the Seahawks. Then I'm going to touch on the Ravens defeating the Titans. And then the big one, the Browns stunning the Pittsburgh Steelers, which, again, I called if you checked out my last segment. So the first, I want to start on that Seahawks and Rams game. I've been saying time and time again, the Seahawks were pretenders. I have been saying it all year long. Did that exactly happen on Saturday? No, it didn't. I said the reason why the Seahawks are pretenders is because their defense is horrific. As great as Russell Wilson was in the first 8 games of the season, he was the league leader for league MVP, and I thought he was absolutely going to win it. I thought he had a good chance of winning it unanimously. But on Saturday, the Rams defense showed up and showed out. Defense wins championships. Russell Wilson was god-awful. That pick six that he threw about 6 yards past the line of scrimmage, awful. 11 of 27, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, a QBR of 17.6. He played his worst playoff game in his entire career. Russell Wilson is a guy that is very hard to beat at home, and I thought the way the Seattle Seahawks were going to go out of these playoffs was he was going to ball out, but their defense just couldn't keep up, and at the end of the game, their defense was going to let up, but it really wasn't even that. Cam Akers ran all over that Seattle defense, especially in the second quarter. And when you're playing up and you have a good defense, it's going to be very easy to win a game. Jared Goff's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. When you give an average quarterback who knows how to manage a game a lead, that's going to make him be able to play to his best ability, which we saw on Saturday. Russell Wilson was so bad. He had one great play, which was a broken play, a touchdown pass to DK Metcalf, which was an unbelievable play. But outside of that and outside of garbage time, Russell Wilson gave you nothing. That was the worst, probably one of the worst games of his career in terms of the playoffs, if you're going to ask me. It was really disappointing to see Wilson go out like that. I thought this year was a legacy mark because people have always been doubting Wilson ever since he came out of college. 3rd-round pick, not the biggest guy. And this year, he never had a first-place MVP vote. We thought this year he was going to get that MVP award. He fell straight off. And then this playoffs in the first round, in the wild card round. Really disappointing to see. But the way that Rams defense put pressure on Russell Wilson, what Aaron Donald was able to put pressure on Wilson, Jalen Ramsey, unbelievable corner, the best corner in the league. The Rams were the better team on Saturday. And any bettors out there? Public was heavy on Seattle at -3. That's why people are good and bad at gambling. People who know how to gamble know how to fade the public. When you see that -3 Seahawks at home against the Rams, it's like, why is this so off? That's where Vegas cashes out. You always have to look at a divisional game as a better chance to be an upset more than any other game. When it's a division rival, there's just something in that game that the two teams hate each other, that it's always going to be a tighter game, and it's more likely to be an upset than any other game. So for the Seahawks, what a disappointing ending to their season when people really had Super Bowl aspirations for them, except for me. I told you the whole time, I told you all year long, the Seahawks were pretenders, not contenders. Now let's flip the script a little bit to the Ravens and the Titans. I've always been crucified as a big Lamar Jackson hater. I said that his game's not built for the playoffs. He will never win a playoff game. Nothing is ever going to change anytime soon. I made a bold prediction before the season started when people told me that the Ravens were going to go 16-0, that Lamar Jackson was the best player in the NFL, not just best quarterback, best player in the NFL. I said that's ridiculous. I said the Ravens will not win a playoff game this year. But on my show on Friday on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, I actually picked the Ravens, and there was only one reason I picked them. Vegas odds. This is a field I'm very experienced at. The Ravens were favored on the road -3.5. Because you look at that line and say, why would the Ravens be favored? They're playing on the road. Derrick Henry is an MVP candidate. If I had a vote, I would be giving Derrick Henry my MVP vote. Last year in the playoffs, Derrick Henry ran for 195 yards against the Ravens when the Ravens had the league MVP. They had the number 1 seed. So why now would they be the favorite? Vegas knows things we don't know. I picked the Ravens because of that. Did the game go exactly as I predicted? Not necessarily. I said the Ravens were going to get up early in the first quarter, and that's how they were going to coast through the game. But being down 10-0, Lamar Jackson was the best running back on the football field. He proved why he is so athletic. He's a top 3 athletic quarterback in the history of football, if not the most athletic, next to Randall Cunningham and Michael Vick. That one run in the second quarter was a statement play. That is where the Ravens got all the momentum. But Lamar Jackson didn't honestly prove all that much to me. He still has not proved to me he could throw you back in a football game, which against better teams, against better defenses, he's going to need to be able to do. He ran all over them. He ran for 136 yards and a touchdown. That was great. But through the air, he didn't give you much. 179 yards versus 1 interception. He really was not all that great throwing the football. But where the Ravens won this game, defense. If someone was ever going to tell me with a straight face that the Ravens were going to hold a Derrick Henry to 40 yards, I would tell you you're kidding yourself. There's no way. I would go to my famous line, that is against probability. There's less than a 0% chance that happens. That's how I would look at that situation. The Ravens stacked the box. They put pressure on that offensive line. They won the physical battle up front. Every single game Derrick Henry's played basically the last 2 years, teams know what the Titans are going to do. They're going to run the ball to Derrick Henry, and you can't do anything about it. That is the first time I literally have seen him stopped. And people all year long were very high on Ryan Tannehill, except for me. I have always said Ryan Tannehill is a mediocre quarterback. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I believe he's a product of Derrick Henry. The Titans offense goes as Henry goes. When you can't establish the run game early, Ryan Tannehill is not going to have much to do. That's why he struggled. Once Derrick Henry couldn't run the ball, the Titans had no offense because Ryan Tannehill is not that type of quarterback. But for Lamar Jackson, congratulations. He deserves it. He got that monkey off his back, but he's got a big task ahead of him going up against Buffalo, which I will touch on later in the week. But now to the final game that I really wanted to touch on. The Cleveland Browns annihilating the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially in the first half. Did I not call this exactly how it was scripted? Please check out my last segment. Please. I told you exactly why the Pittsburgh Steelers were not going to do anything in these playoffs. They lost 4 of their last 5 games finishing the season. Momentum is a real thing in sports. When you are struggling entering the playoffs, you have all the pressure on you, especially a team with expectations. I posted on my Facebook page, when the Steelers were 11-0, I said this 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers team doesn't have that same feel to them as the Brady Patriots did when they had long stretches of being undefeated. It didn't have the same feeling as the Peyton Manning Indianapolis Colts when they had long stretches of being undefeated. You never had that feeling where it's, all right, it's these boys and everybody else. Like, this is the team to beat. I never felt that with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bill Parcells once upon a time said, you are what your record says. Sure, that's literally true, but figuratively and context behind it, that's not true. The Steelers had many games all year long where they had sloppy, ugly wins, and I understand Al Davis once said, just win, baby. A win's a win. I totally understand that. But when you're looking towards the postseason, once you play better teams, these things are going to matter. And the Pittsburgh Steelers were awful. The Tin Man in Ben Roethlisberger showed out to be the Tin Man. He cannot move in the pocket. I always said the Browns' game plan was so simple, and I understand they didn't have their head coach, which a lot of people said why the Browns won't win this game. But defensively, it's an easy game plan. James Conner and that offensive line running the football is atrocious. They are probably the worst rushing attack in the league. I don't have the stats in front of me, but from what I've seen with my own 2 eyes, that running attack is disgusting. When you can't run the ball, you have one thing to do, and that's prepare for the passing game. Roethlisberger being the Tin Man in the pocket, as I keep continuing calling him, I will forever call him that this late in his career. The Tin Man does not drop back. He leads the league with passes batted down. and you know they're throwing the football. And the more you rely on Roethlisberger to throw the football, the more he's going to struggle, the more turnovers he's going to create. It is exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. 4 turnovers in the first half, and at that point, when it was 28-0, the game was over. That was embarrassing for the Pittsburgh Steelers with Super Bowl aspirations. People were trying to say that they were going to come out of the AFC and actually win a Super Bowl. That was ridiculous. I told you before this game started, when it's a division rival game, there's always an extra little spice to it. It's always going to be more competitive, and it gives the underdogs a better chance to win this game. The Browns had momentum finishing the season pretty hot. Baker Mayfield's been playing pretty well as of late, even though I've been very critical of him. Again, he's a hit or miss. He's very inconsistent. But when you're playing with a lead, that's when you're at your best. That's when it's easier. I say any gamblers out there, when you're gambling and you're up, it's very easy to gamble when you could really put all your thoughts in it, and you don't have to play scared, and you don't have to worry about making a comeback because you're playing with house money. The same thing as a starting pitcher. When a pitcher is given a lead in the first or second inning, it's easier for them to pitch because you know you have comfort, you know you have some wiggle room, and you're playing with house money. I look at that the same thing as playing quarterback. When you have a lead, especially a young, inexperienced quarterback in Baker Mayfield, that's why he was able to play well. And that running back duo in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they ran through that Pittsburgh defense like Swiss cheese. They were unbelievable, and they set the tone for their young quarterback in Baker Mayfield. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, their defense was atrocious, even though they had a top defense all year long. And the Tin Man showed us why he's the Tin Man, and the Steelers need to move on from him. That was an embarrassing of a performance. Since the first play, fumbled in the end zone. That's how you started the game at home. When you don't have momentum and you're struggling entering the postseason, why do you think anything is ever going to change? Why? It's not a thing where you could struggle and then flip a switch and be like, oh, we're going to be back to our old selves, our 11-year-old selves. No. That's not how it works. In the sport like football, in a sport like baseball, in a sport like hockey, the hot teams are the teams you need to worry about. The teams that have momentum entering the playoffs are teams that are going to be dangerous. The Pittsburgh Steelers lost 4 of their last 5 games finishing this season. Right then and there, that's all I needed to know. And I don't trust Ben Roethlisberger to throw me through a football game because I know they can't run the ball. When you can't establish a run game, how easy it is for a defensive coordinator to game plan, like I already addressed. That was embarrassing. That was simply embarrassing at home. The Pittsburgh Steelers need to move on from Ben Roethlisberger. The Browns winning their first playoff game since before the bubonic plague pandemic in like 1100 BC or whatever the hell that was. They probably won a playoff game before that. I don't have the number in front of me. But congratulations to the Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, and Cleveland, Ohio, who desperately deserve this. I called this all along. The Steelers were pretenders. The Browns were going to get this win. And hey, that's 6-0 in my picks this week. But thank you. But that's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you for watching my content. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for more of my content. And if you want to check out my show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, I'm on Tuesdays and Fridays, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be covering all the games. We'll be covering some NBA. And later on the Falco Takeaway, tune in for some predictions entering the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Thank you again for sticking around. Talk to you soon. Stick around for more of my content.